Hello race fans and welcome to this week's track guide for Daily Race C at Suzuka International Circuit. With my lap replay playing in the background, I would like to share a few facts about the track, just to briefly touch on the track's famous layout before jumping into the car for the actual track guide. Suzuka was actually designed by a Dutchman, John Hugenholtz, in 1962. The track is actually a figure of 8 with an overpass to go back over the track at the back straight just before the famous 130R corner. It is called 130R because that is the total radius of the corner in meters. And the funny thing is, Suzuka's main rival track in Japan, called Fuji, which is also in GT7, for instance, has a 100R corner and a 300R corner. So Suzuka is not the only track with this kind of corner names. Suzuka is also the Japanese word for beetle, but the beetle is not the meta car to choose in this week's Daily Race C if you want to get a good and fast lap time. It appears to be the BMW M6, either the sprint model or the endurance model, and hence this is why I set my lap time also in this model. It was also just simply to get myself to get to the best time possible, as I'm trying to get to DR rating A and I'm almost there, so the higher I start on the grid, the better it is to score good points to improve my DR. For the race there are multiple car options you can choose depending on if you want to fuel save or go full send attack. And my car of choice for this race usually is the Subaru BRZ, because it seems to be pretty stable and fairly good on fuel. But I've also seen people race in actually the Beetle, the Mazda, the Corvette, and of course in this case the BMW. Now let's jump into the actual track guide. Going into the first corner, you first want to get a good launch out of the final chicane, simply to take the most speed onto the start-finish straight. Balance braking at around 50 meter sign and shifting down while turning the car and aiming for the second apex, with the main tip for the first sector being to try and find a nice flow and go easy on the throttle. Just keep the car stable and especially stick to the right at this final right-hander just to have the highest exit speed going into the second sector. This next part is all full throttle. Then light braking at the 50 meter sign, and again just before the curb on the left ends. Going under the overpass and then into the hairpin. Keep the car stable but try to shift down gears for engine braking and car rotation. I like cutting the hairpin into sort of like a V shape to get the car straight as soon as possible, ensuring I get a good launch into this next straight. Going into the final sector, it's all about rhythm. Just before going on the back straight, hit the apex on the left here, usually in third, and exiting with a balanced throttle. And as I mentioned before going into the famous 130R, it is actually possible to take this corner full throttle, but as you can see in this lap I slightly lift just to keep the track, or the car I mean, just to keep the car on the grey stuff. Heavy braking into the chicane and on the throttle as soon as the nose of the car is pointing at the exit. To keep the car at the right as you cross the line to win an extra tenth.